Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Tiffany, for that very generous introduction, for the invitation. It's an honor and a privilege to join some of my distinguished colleagues from the Congress here today at this very important conference, this very important topic, at this very important moment of time. I've had the privilege of serving in the United States Congress now for a little over 4 years, representing a district that is anchored in Brooklyn, New York, with a little bit of Queens, an incredibly diverse district, but one that also is undergoing significant change. During my time in the Congress, I've been able to serve for that entire period of my tenure on the Judiciary Committee, which is an interesting committee. Darrell Issa serves on it as well. Representative Del Bene used to serve on it. And it's often thought of as one of the more divisive committees in the Congress because we have jurisdiction over a whole host of social justice issues where the right and the left, progressives and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans don't always see eye to eye. Jurisdiction over gun ownership rights, immigration rights, women's rights, reproductive rights, voting rights, civil rights, a whole host of issues where people on the left, people on the right see things differently. But what's been fascinating about my Judiciary Committee experience is that we also have jurisdiction over some issues that are important to the innovation and technology economy. And on those issues, largely related to our intellectual property system, there's a long history of Democrats and Republicans working together in a bipartisan fashion. And it's a curiosity for many people as to why on this committee that deals with so many Judiciary Committee type issues as it relates to social justice, we would also have jurisdiction over issues that are important to the innovation and technology economy. And it all stems from the fact that Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution gives the Congress the power to create a robust intellectual property system for the explicit purpose of promoting the progress of science and useful arts. And so at the very founding of our republic, the founding fathers of this great country recognized that innovation and entrepreneurship and invention and ingenuity would be important to our future prosperity, to America becoming such a great and exceptional nation. And since we, as Judiciary Committee members, have jurisdiction over all things constitutional, we therefore have been given charge over the intellectual property system that the founders gave Congress the power to create in our Constitution. Why do I say that? Because embedded in our DNA as a country has been the notion of constant innovation, constant invention, and the change, of course, that comes with that, and the realization that people should be able to benefit from the fruits of their labor and their creativity. That's a foundational principle, and one that all generations have been forced to confront in different ways. And so now, obviously, our current challenge in the midst of this technology revolution, the technology and innovation economy that is before us, is how do we make sure that it works for all Americans? How do we make sure that people are prepared for the jobs of the 21st century? And clearly that means we have to create a pipeline through education and job training so that the next generation of young people in this country can become innovators and entrepreneurs and inventors. I sort of confronted this in my own experience back at home. I have two sons. Jeremiah is the oldest, Joshua is the youngest. A few years ago when Joshua was 11 years old, he'd been playing baseball and doing pretty well at it, but he came to me one day and he said, "Dad, I want to take a sports break." And at first I was a little confused because, you know, sports break is not necessarily a term that I was familiar with. I said to myself, is this a millennial thing? You know, do I have to confront the Urban Dictionary? And to tell you the truth, I was a little bit a little bit disappointed because, as I mentioned, he was doing well at baseball. He was the leadoff hitter. He was the fastest boy on his team. He was playing shortstop. I was having visions of Derek Jeter in early retirement. But I also realized that it presented an opportunity that I think we want to make sure all parents have throughout this country. That he would have some free time because he wouldn't be playing baseball on Saturday. And so I said to him, well, you're going to have some free time now. You're not going to be playing baseball throughout the spring and the summer. We're going to sign you up for a coding class. We want to make sure that you can learn not just how to play games on the computer, but how to create and invent games on the computer. And I realized that all parents in this country should be equipped with the opportunity of providing their young people, their sons and their daughters, in urban America, in suburban America, and in rural America, with the opportunity to become future computer scientists and engineers and coders and the next generation of innovators in this country. But that obviously is an important starting point, a commitment that I think exists on the Hill from Democrats and Republicans. But we also must confront, I think, a more urgent question, and that's why this discussion, this topic, is so significant to where we are as a nation. Abraham Lincoln once asked the question, how do we create a more perfect union? And he asked that question in the context of the Civil War that was raging at the time, threatening to tear this country apart. And we know since that moment, year after year, decade after decade, century after century, we've made tremendous progress in America, but it's still relevant for every generation to ask that question, how do we create a more perfect union? And in the context of the middle class that exists in America right now, the great middle class that was created in the aftermath of World War II, the greatest middle class that the world has ever seen, there's significant anxiety about what the future will look like. Significant anxiety that I think relates to our continued march toward a more perfect union. Yes, during the last 8 years, the unemployment rate was reduced from over 10% to under 5%. The stock market increased from around 6,000 to over 18,000. More than 14 million private sector jobs have been created. But there's real reason for economic anxiety amongst members of the middle class and those who aspire to be part of it, anchored in the fact that the productivity of the American worker, in large part perhaps due to automation and innovation, has increased in excess of 285% since the early 1970s. But wages have increased during that same period of time by less than 10%. So the productivity gains of the American economy have not really gone to the American worker. We don't have an unemployment problem, we have an underemployment problem. People feeling as if they're trapped in jobs that won't allow them to realize the great benefits of the middle-class American dream. College education seems out of reach for a lot of folks, even if they aspire to be engineers and coders or computer programmers with the sticker shock of $60,000 or more in tuition. And the shift, of course, from defined benefit plans, which is a reality, the pensions that existed for our parents, our grandparents, are no longer the same type of retirement vehicles available in an environment where we now have defined contribution plans, but that also brings about economic anxiety. And so these are big questions that we have to confront as we continue our march toward a more perfect union, but it begins with a commitment to maintain the great American middle class and to create opportunities for those who aspire to be part of it as we continue this march toward a more perfect union. And if we put all of our energy and all of our intelligence and all of our capability into ensuring that the next generation of Americans can benefit from the technology revolution that has taken place in ways that are consistent with what we view as middle-class America and the dreams that are connected to that, that I'm confident, particularly given those who are in this room, that we can work this out together and we can continue to perfect our more perfect union. So thank you for your involvement. Thank you for your presence. Look forward to working together.